We're constantly surrounded by numbers, right? Statistics, data points, they're everywhere. They tell us what's happening, how much things have changed, but do they ever really tell us the full story? Well, today we're going to dive into what's hiding behind the numbers.
All right, take a look at this. 82%. What does that even mean? Is it good? Bad? Maybe it's a score on a test or a customer satisfaction rating? Who knows? Without any context, a number like this is just, well, it's just a number. It doesn't really mean anything.
And that right there is the fundamental problem. If we only rely on what's called pure quantitative data analysis, the picture is totally incomplete. A number can tell you what happened for sure, but it almost never tells you why it happened. And the why, that's where the real story is.
So, to get that complete picture, we really need to understand that there are two sides to every data story. And the key isn't about picking one over the other. It's about weaving them together to figure out what's really going on. This lays it out perfectly. On one side, you have quantitative analysis. Just think of this as the what. It's all about counting things, measuring stuff, finding those numerical patterns. It answers the question, how many? But then, on the other side, we have qualitative analysis. This is the why. This is about understanding the context, the motivations, the human experience behind those numbers. It asks, yeah, but why did this happen?
So, here's the crucial idea. When we talk about qualitative analysis, we're talking about the process of, and I'm quoting our source here, looking in depth. It's about digging into all the non-numerical stuff, like interview notes, open-ended survey answers, customer feedback, to really understand the human story.
So why do we even do this? What's the end game for digging up that story? Well, it's not just about satisfying our own curiosity. It actually has a very specific and very powerful purpose.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? The whole goal is to enrich the quality of data analysis. See, you're not throwing away the numbers, you're making them smarter. You're making them more meaningful and way more useful by adding that layer of human understanding. So, what does this look like in the real world? It's a pretty straightforward flow. It all starts with step one. You see a number, that's your quantitative data. Then, that number naturally makes you go to step two. You have to ask, why? And that question kicks off step three. You investigate in depth using those qualitative methods. And the result? Step four. You get a complete and way more actionable picture. Okay, theory is great, but let's see how this actually works. Let's walk through a quick example of how this process can turn a really confusing number into a crystal clear story and a clear solution. Okay, so imagine this. You run a website and you're looking at your dashboard, and you see a 40% drop in new user signups last month. Yikes, that is an alarming number, right? That is your quantitative what. It's screaming that something is wrong, but it gives you absolutely zero clues as to what it is.
So instead of just guessing or, panicking, the team decides to investigate. They actually reach out to people who visited the site but didn't finish signing up. They start doing interviews. This right here is the qualitative looking in-depth part of the process.
And through those conversations, they find it. The story. The why. Turns out, the product was great. The marketing was doing its job, but the password creation rules were so confusing and frustrating that people were just giving up. Now that is an insight that 40% number could never, ever have given you on its own.
And the result of combining that what with the why, you get an enriched insight. You've identified the real problem. Now, instead of guessing, you have a super clear solution. Simplify the password requirements. You've avoided making wrong assumptions, like blaming the marketing team, and now you're ready to make a much smarter decision.
So let's bring this all home. The really crucial thing to take away from this is that true understanding, it rarely lives in a spreadsheet all by itself. I think this is just the perfect way to remember the difference. Think of it like this. Your quantitative data, all the numbers, the charts, the stats, that gives you the skeleton. It's the essential structure. But it's the qualitative data, the stories, the opinions, the motivations that adds the muscle, the heart, and brings that whole skeleton to life.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. The world is absolutely full of numbers telling you what's happening. But now you know that behind every single one of those data points, there's a human story just waiting to be understood. So the question is, what story are the numbers around you waiting to tell?